Welcome, players, to Is a Game. Is a Game podcast is a one-of-a-kind Q&A inspired by word association that invites you to get inside the minds of world-class creatives, entrepreneurs, and marketers worldwide. So I'm Izzy, your host, also known as Isabella Di Stefano. I've been in social storytelling and creative for over 13 years, launching campaigns you may have seen, like In Bed with My Calvins, Barbie Life in the Dream House, and Selfie by the Chainsmokers. I am so excited to introduce you to my favorite internet pen friend. Yes, we met through social media. Laurise, who is an industry veteran, a editorial queen, a creator, a host, an icon of our generation. I am so honored to have her here in the studio with me. Laurise, please take it away. Introduce yourself.
Oh my gosh, that is such a great intro. Like, I need to just have you with me all the time to just do that. Oh my gosh. Wow.
I'll be your backup singer.
It is giving. I love it. Like the energy. But yes, I am a content strategist. I currently work at Meta Instagram.
Is that your official title? What is your official title?
Content strategist.
But you're also hosting a show.
I am, girl. I'm a host now. So I host this show that we have on Meta for Business called Social Skills, which is really similar to this show in the sense where we just really get into the minds of social media managers. We just are like, how are you running your account? We need to know everything about it. Give us the tea. And so just like a space for social media editors to nerd out.
What's something recent, surprising that you learned through the interviews?
Okay, so I talked to this swim trunk brand called Fair Harbor. You know, swim trunks, it's mostly guys, you're thinking, right? Mm-hmm. Their top customers were ladies who have sons, ladies who have husbands, ladies who are buying for the men in their life. And so they had to restructure their marketing to talk to somebody different. And, you know, you just would never think a men's swim trunk company's top customer.
It's so true, though, because
shocking.
The women actually we make less money, but we have more purchasing power, right? Because they typically are the bigger purchasers in the household.
Yes.
At least based on my experience and learnings. So what does a typical day look like for you?
Honestly, I've been really blessed to have a bunch of really super fun-ass jobs. And so at Meta for Business, at Instagram for Business, I literally sit around all day and think up different reels, different post ideas we can post on our Instagram and Facebook channels to literally teach small businesses how to use our products. So you know me, I'm a softie. I love any chance I can to interact with the community, to give back. My mom is a small business owner, to really use my super annoying millennial internet knowledge and pour it into small businesses, mom and pop shops, girls like us who are getting on their entrepreneurship and just giving them that sauce and that tea to really make their online presence pop, to make actual money, to because that's what really matters.
Yeah.
To get that paper at the end of the day. So it's really nice to have a job where it's creative. I'm on camera. I'm filming my own reels. But at the end of the day, it's all content that pours into this kind of underserved community of small business owners who are just trying to keep their stuff afloat.
I love that because I think that's one of the greatest things about social media is the access that it creates and opportunity. It's limitless, right? Because everyone has the same tools at their fingertips and it's something that can be self-taught. And that's why I got into it in the first place. Because I wasn't trained as a marketer or communication specialist. But now we're all becoming creators in our own right. And I think there's I hear so much negativity about social media, right? And I want to have more optimistic conversations about it because I also think that you create your own ecosystem on social media. You kind of shape over time what your universe is on the platform. So if you are intentional about what you engage with and who you follow, you can create a really positive environment.
Oh, yeah. You know, it's so interesting. My friends and I always have this conversation about a diet. And, like I come from Refinery 29. We don't even use that word diet. But when I say diet in this instance, I'm not talking about like the food you eat necessarily. It's more than that. It's more than the food you eat. It's the music you consume. It's the people you choose to talk to. It's the accounts you choose to interact with and follow and save. Even if you don't follow them, like what are you creeping? What are you choosing to interact with and consume? Like that's part of your diet. And
I love that. I have never heard that before, and that is spot on. That is spot on.
It's true, right? Like the way you're feeling, all of that is all influenced by so much more than food. So like, let's keep it a buck. It's a diet. You have to maintain it. And like you said, you have to choose and decide which experiences you want to insert yourself in on social media. Like granted, things happen, like cyberbullying is so, so real. People who are going through that can't really control like, oh, I didn't choose to be a part of this community. So that's not exactly what I'm talking about, but you all know what I mean. Going to the pages or the people who make you feel less than, who exes and things that have made you feel triggered, like
oh my god,
political arguments, like just choose not to. Yes,
block,
choose not to.
Create boundaries, just like you do and have to in life, right?
Yes.
It's the same in real life. It's the same way. I'm so excited to talk to you because there's so much, especially today. Like I think there's just like a lot of hate spewing in the space of like, oh, the platforms and like they're trying to destroy us. And, I built my career on the platforms.
Yeah.
So
same girl.
I understand, of course, they have a monetization strategy in a business because that is life, right? And that's how the world works.
Right.
But I don't think the intentions are bad.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited to be here with you. Without further ado, I'm gonna explain the game. So I came up with a list of words. I come up with a different list of words for every episode. They're inspired by you and pop culture. And the idea is for us to have an unfiltered conversation. So pick a word and then I'm gonna say it and then immediately tell me, literally, it does not matter what it is. I wanna know the first thing that comes into your brain.
Okay, I'm game.
Okay. So are you ready? Do you have any questions about how the game works?
No, I love word association, so I'm ready.
Okay,
I hope.
Great. You got this. Let's go for your first word. Creator.
Instagram. Sorry, that was very predictable, but what else would I think of first?
No, I mean, it's the OG. Okay, so let's talk about Instagram. Would you say what Facebook did, Instagram is sort of following? And obviously, like,
yes.
Vice versa. There are a lot of elements that came from Instagram that now live on Facebook.
Yes.
But I think in terms of the product strategy, the overall strategy, it seems like it's sort of falling into step with Facebook. For example, the way we went from IGTV to having IGTV videos and reels, and it was almost like test and learn for the platform and then optimize towards what's working, which is the reels. Does that feel like, am I sort of instinctually feeling the right things? Is like that where we're going? Is it kind of following a similar trend?
I mean, honestly, I know this is like not the answer anyone wants to hear, but like Instagram and Meta are such large companies with so many departments that the teams who really work on the new product features and those sorts, yes, it's very all integrated, but as somebody who is on the business marketing team, my job is usually to like take those new changes, whatever they are, and teach them. And it's less of a role of like, hey, this is what the new product should be. And so the way the funnel goes is like the product teams like make these things. And once they're created, we educate about them. So I'm not sure what the thinking was, truthfully, or like
I'm curious. So there's not really a feedback loop then in terms of like what you're seeing in the trenches, right, on the platform necessarily, or they're just looking purely at the data.
There's definitely a feedback loop. Like, so you've worked in media. In media, a social media team is perhaps 3 people, if that. Yeah. It's the person to post it and schedule it, maybe a graphic designer to make it if you're lucky, perhaps a video editor if you're also lucky. That's about it. At Instagram and Facebook, There is a team that does our analytics. There is copywriters. There are video editors. There are graphic designers. There's content strategists.
It's all very siloed.
And that's just one team. So our team that gives insights is probably one of lots of teams that give insights. I'm sure they're all very in alignment, but I couldn't tell you how many people are at this company in terms of like how big it is. So it's not like I just pass product people in passing like every day. Like it is a very siloed company. And while an analytics team that I do not touch, I get their analytics and I use those learnings to create the content. I couldn't tell you what their day-to-day looks like in terms of if they sit down with product and are like, hey, we have these meetings every single day. I'm sure that like they do and have to, but
No, it's so consistent. I mean,
would not
having
know.
worked in, it's interesting because I have experienced that literally at every corporation, right?
Yeah.
Where it's very siloed. And I just wonder if there is a way to break down those boundaries when you are that massive. I just don't know if that's possible.
We do. I know the company does a lot of like team share outs and a lot of like large like all hands meetings. We also like, instead of utilizing Slack, like we have a whole workplace system that like, you know, it's like Facebook, but like you can post a post that's like, hey, I'm going to tell everyone in the company about this one giant project. So like those lines of communication are open super informally, like in front of my face all the time. I would be lying if I said I actively sought them out and read them in like their entirety all the time. But I'm like more than sure that there's like somebody's job to disseminate that back to product. I mean, I remember even being a social media editor at Refinery, going to our client partners on the media side and telling them like, hey, these are all the ways the features need to change to make my job better as a social media editor. And they would send that back to product. And so like, I'm sure that still happens, but like that's so another team and I have no idea. In terms of my team, we work really closely with our analytics team to get direct feedback within our comments for our specific at Meta for Business page and at Instagram for Business page. That helps us inform our content. That data is like super, I mean, anyone can go and read the comments. It's not like hidden or anything, but it is super precious to be able to read that.
It's so important to do a mix of quantitative and qualitative. Like you can't just go by the numbers, but you can't go without the numbers either. You need a mix of both.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next word. Your word is ideal.
Ideal. Happy.
How would you define, like, for you, what is happy?
I don't know what happy looks like for me at this age. I can only think of like small things like walking my dog and eating like a strawberry lemonade smoothie.
So the simple things.
Yeah, I guess
like
the simple things.
The little things.
Yeah.
Is there a time where, well, of course, because we've all had these times. I mean, tell me about a time when you were not happy. How did you manage that?
So, you know this. Earlier this year, my mom was diagnosed with lung cancer, and I completely uprooted my life here in New York and moved back to Maryland to become her caretaker. And it was so hard. I felt like I didn't really have any space for myself as an individual person. I was really just like living as a daughter and a caretaker. I wasn't like Laurise, a human being, an individual.
First of all, I'm so sorry. And I relate 100% because my mom is a lung cancer survivor, recent. And it actually happened during the pandemic at a point when New York was so locked down that I could not get to her because she lives in Europe. And so she had to go through all of that by herself.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing is not having your own purpose.
Or just like my own space to even explore that purpose and fulfill it. And what I really did while I was home to really force myself to pour back into myself was I started horseback riding. Maryland has so much land and so many horses. And
was it your first time horseback riding?
It wasn't my first time, but it was my first time as an adult, I think. Like, I haven't been on a horse since like maybe I was like 5 years old. But it's nice. It's a solo, I guess, sport, you know. You don't need anybody to do it. You know, like I needed an instructor and like a ranch and stuff to ride around, but like you don't really have to worry about anybody else.
No, it's you and the horse.
It's super, super focused on you and what you want it to be. And so it really became like a safe space for me. I did it like one day out of the week, like every Saturday morning. And it was just like my little chunk of time to just not do anything else for anybody else. And I feel like that kept me a little sane.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a learning, I think, you know, when in times when you're down and you're like finding something that you can accomplish. That was really helpful for me. I mean, when I was like going through this really hard time and I wasn't working, I was taking time off. And I'm like a workaholic. So like that was very uncomfortable for me. I was like, what do I do?
Malfunctioning.
I'm like, what do you mean there's time? And I started giving myself these like collage projects and just like having or things that I was new to skill. I was learning how to teaching myself how to code. Yeah, I can do some like HTML and a little CSS.
I see you.
Yeah. But yeah, I think for anyone who's like feeling lost or like it doesn't even have to be related to what your career is. Like you're not becoming a horseback rider.
Yeah.
But it's a new skill that you can learn and you can feel like you're making progress.
Yeah. It's nice to be new at something when you are in a career field that you've been in for a while and you have no intention of really doing a ton of like crazy shifts, like moving from marketing to become a horseback rider, like you said. But it is nice to just like be a newbie again and not have the results tied to anything financial or like precious in a way. Like if you fall off the horse, you just get back on it.
I have a question. Is there something that you've been dying to try that?
Yes.
What?
It's not like super exciting, so I hope it doesn't disappoint. But I keep getting served these ads on Instagram for this company called, I think, Sculpted. But it's like at-home pottery that you can do, and you don't need a glaze.
Why don't I get these ads?
I'll send it to you. I get the best freaking ads, but I think it's because I shop for so much home stuff.
Wait, I love pottery. I used to, actually in high school, we had a pottery class.
Yeah.
So fun.
I did it in
using
college.
your hands, like doing something active, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Okay, so horseback riding.
So I'm actually, there's this really cute, I'll have to send it to you because you're just going to die at just how cute it is. You don't even have to be a horseback rider to appreciate it. But I don't know if you know Amelia Diamond, who used to be at Man Repeller.
Yes, yeah, I do.
But she and this...
I don't know her personally, but yeah.
Yeah, she was like such a personality. Yeah. Lots of people just like know her, like air quote know her. But like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She and this woman who is like the true founder, Emmy, they do this cute little like magazine that's almost so niche that it should just be called a zine, I think, called Calling All Horse Girls. And it's so niche. It's all about girls, like women and horses, and they're all like journalism people who like secretly love horses. And
it's women who ride horses, or they're just reporting on horses?
It's women who ride horses. And also I think the bio is something like, to all the horse girls that used to be, were, or always wish they were one, you know, like I think that line is always nice because it's such an expensive ass sport that.
Oh my God, tell me about it. Like, a lot of my girlfriends in high school were horse girls. I was a horse girl when I was really young, but I did not have a pony.
Dude, I couldn't afford it when I was younger, but like I'm grown up size now. And so I'm like, I can pay for my own lessons and it's so fun. And like I'm a 28-year-old with no children and a nice job. So I'm fortunate to be able to do that, to get my mind off of shit. And so I'm like, I should, you know, I shouldn't deprive myself of that.
Hot
Cheetos. I'm so sorry.
Oh my God. Wait, I love Cheetos. Wait, but I never see them. I
haven't seen them in a while either, but truthfully, I have not been looking for them. My stomach can't do that hot Cheeto stuff.
Do they still exist? Are we sure that Cheetos are still a thing?
They are alive. They're definitely alive and well.
Okay.
They have to be. I feel like as I got older, my stomach was just like, girl, you can't.
I definitely can't eat the same thing.
And people are like, oh, like, why you don't like that? I'm like, I love that. That shit does not like me back. Because it hurts my stomach so bad.
I would totally agree with that. As I've gotten older into my 30s, everything has become more sensitive. I mean, don't even get me started about drinking, but Cheetos also make me think of like the 90s.
Yes.
And my mom is from the Midwest, and they love their Cheetos and pop. And I like remember growing up and going to the beach house and like having, the chips and pop, and a lot of like nostalgia there. It's a fun brand. They actually have like an opportunity.
Cheetos are nostalgic. I spent a moment, my job. I spend a lot of time like educating people on the products we have, but I also look for just like super stellar accounts. So I'm always just looking for really bomb Instagram accounts, business accounts, and Facebook accounts. And I randomly found my way onto the Cartoon Network account, and I absolutely love their account so much. I've been following them for years, but it led me into a further spiral that was just all 90s candy. So I was looking at like the Captain Crunch Instagram, the Cheetos Instagram, the Smarties Instagram.
I haven't looked at the Captain Crunch
It's so funny.
Instagram.
It's just like some of them are so like abandoned, but others are like they're actually trying. But it's just a really interesting space.
And Lucky Charms.
Yeah, like all of those like really funny, like super brandy brands. Like they're super branded. It's such a theme to it.
Snap, Crackle, Pop. Was that a thing in the U.S.?
The Rice
Krispies.
Yeah.
I asked. I was in England at the time, like when I was eating that kind of cereal.
Yeah, so. They were definitely here. But yeah, I think just looking at how different old brands take form on social is just so funny.
Well, they have such an opportunity right now.
Oh, yeah.
Because nostalgia is so of the moment.
Yeah.
And there are so many heritage brands. Like I'm such a weirdo that I become like obsessed with certain brands, and I'm like, I have to work with you.
So am I. I'm obsessed.
And so I just like stalk them until they hire me. So I'm doing that right now with Fiorucci. Hi, Fiorucci. It's me again. But, they're an Italian heritage brand that I'm obsessed with. My branding, everything is very inspired by Fiorucci because, in the 80s, they created more graphic art than any brand ever. They were actually like one of the first brands to establish jeans and a t-shirt as a thing. That's one brand that I'm on. Baby G Casio, I just posted a video recently about like this concept that I pitched them that they did not go for. Baby G, what's up? No, I'm just kidding. Not really. But I'm very excited about bringing heritage brands with a ton of nostalgia and emotional value for people into the zeitgeist today, and like making
that's your
them relevant
superpower.
again.
I think
so.
I think it is.
Yeah,
that's like your one-liner. Like,
thanks.
You're like a whole paragraph, but like that's your like.
You're so
nobody else does that.
Thank you. Thanks.
I see you, girl.
Okay. Next word. Algorithm.
Social media.
Was that really the first?
It was Instagram again. If I was like,
that's
already done that.
That's
I know
okay.
that.
That's okay.
Okay, I feel like a cheater for doing it twice.
No. It's honestly because they have so much brand equity. I mean, even though TikTok is like, Instagram's like, oh my God, TikTok is
hot
here.
Sister.
And it's hot. What are we going to do? But Instagram is never going to go away. Just like Facebook, people have in their heads like no one uses Facebook anymore. It's like, newsflash, you use Facebook without even knowing you use Facebook when you log in with Facebook. Like, you're still using Facebook. Yeah. So I think they have so much brand equity more than TikTok. As a brand, Instagram has more of an authority, and I think it's an immediate association with social media more so than TikTok. I'm really curious to see what Instagram does with NFTs. I know I was reading about how it's not available to everyone yet, but I think a larger pool now can display NFTs.
I'm not sure, to be honest, but I know that I saw that the creators team recently did some post about how NFTs are showing up on Instagram. I'm not actually sure who it's available to yet.
What's your take on NFTs?
I think, as I'm somebody who grew up as a graphic designer, and so the idea of a new medium for that sort of art to live on is really cool. And I know that NFTs don't necessarily have to be graphic design, but as someone who, one of my core foundations is graphic design, that's the first thing I think of. It's wow, this thing that's been sitting on my computer for years can actually virtually exist on my wall or my friend's wall if they buy it, so.
Do you remember the first thing you ever designed graphically? The first graphic design thing you ever, the first time you touched Adobe or whatever it was?
It was definitely in community college. I was a freshman in college. And I feel like my first ever design homework projects were collages. My teacher would have us go out and scan in real objects to manipulate in the programs, which I think people just don't do as much anymore.
When you say manipulate, what kind of transformation are you referring to?
So if you think about the idea of tape lifting, literally taking tape, putting it onto a magazine, pulling it up, and then sticking that onto a new piece of paper.
That's a thing.
You now have a new sort of collage that you can create. And then if you scan that in and it's a photo and it pops up on Photoshop, now you can add things to it. You can pick those pieces of collage up if you cut them out and remove them in the program. But I was always encouraged to think about how I could utilize real life objects and things and creative and use it as a strength in digital design, which is such an old school, I think, way of thinking. I had older teachers, but I think it's so refreshing even now to think about, I think about even hand done type. When I was younger, I was going to all of these typography conferences and things and seeing people pick fresh flowers and organize baby's breath into scripty type and photographing it and then putting it into Photoshop, cutting it out and then manipulating it as its own font. But just that true marriage of
the physical and the digital.
The physical and the digital. Scanning in real flowers even, you can, so much. Doesn't just have to be a vector.
I adore that because I also think it speaks to what NFTs are really about. Right? Yeah. One of the coolest thing about NFTs is the community it can create, and this idea of the marriage of the tactical and real life objects and this digital art that you can create is so interesting to me. I have a question. As a really well, seasoned, exceptional designer that you are, what are your feelings about tools like Canva?
Yeah, so it's so interesting. I had this freelance client maybe 2 years ago in 2020, and they were having me make some stuff for their social, and they would send me the files I would request, and they would not show up as Illustrator files. They would show up as a Canva link. And my partner and I were what the fuck is this? I'm a real professional. How dare you? What is this? Fast forward 2 months later, I'm using Canva because I have to, because that's what I'm being paid to do now. And I look at my partner and I'm it takes no skill to do this, but I can do it. And so I actually have embraced the ease of Canva. Uh-huh. You have to just take the art snob off sometimes to adapt to just what the industry's doing.
1,000%.
And it's really hard.
It's really hard, but you know what? That is why you're so successful.
Thanks,
because
babe.
What I see so much of and what I do differently in my own creative work is especially, creative directors who will develop a campaign sort of without thinking about the destination in mind, where it's going. And it's just about the aesthetic or the art of it. And
it's a portfolio piece for them.
Mm-hmm. And it's a it's like taken so seriously in that way. And the reality is, if that like snobby creative director would learn the language of the destination of where the content is going, first of all, they'd be an even better creative, in my opinion, because you're flexible, right? Mm-hmm. But the content would also be more successful.
Exactly.
So I think it's so awesome, and it's why we get along so well, is like you are a very open-minded person. And I think career-wise, it's a really important thing to note is never to be stuck in your ways of doing things. Yeah. And I think a lot of times especially in really corporate environments, we get really stuck in a process. And I've always kind of been the person who comes in to like change it up.
Yeah.
And like break the process. Mm. But I think that the best creativity, the strongest creative comes out of that like willingness to adapt.
I totally agree. I think it's also like, I know that not every creative or marketer, maybe marketer, is set out to be a strategist. But in my opinion, those challenges of the change help make you a better strategist. Essentially, that is what strategy is, like if you're a designer and you're like, wow, I'm posting all of these graphics on Instagram and they're no longer performing and videos performing, it is up to you as a professional to meet that design challenge where it is.
Exactly.
Otherwise, that's what they're paying you the big bucks for. If you're, or supposedly, or that's how it's supposed to work. So like figure out a way to start animating your type on some freaking video. Like if that's how it's going to work. Otherwise, you lose the equity you've worked so hard to build up.
And I think the relevancy of your work.
The relevancy.
Right? I love that about you. I love that you're so like open and no ego. It's like let go of.
The ego is there, but you have to talk it down. You have to you have to acknowledge it, give it its moment to be a little brat, and then let it go. And recognize at the end of the day, what you're choosing to move forward with instead of this BS is your future, your creative process. You're allowing it to evolve. And you're also, like, truthfully allowing yourself to get to a bag of money because that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
That's what marketing is about,
Okay, we have time for one more word. It's the final word. What's it gonna be? Reminisce.
Reminisce. Scrapbook.
Ooh. Let's reinvent the scrapbook. Do you scrapbook?
I actually took a whole class in high school called scrapbooking. I don't know how they were allowed to offer that.
They had that class?
I loved it. It was offered by my journalism teacher, and I actually have this giant, beautiful scrapbook that I would have made anyway, but I got a grade for in the 12th grade that when I was home, I like looked at really fondly, and it was just so sweet to like see this like storybook of my life. I feel like I should do more of it. I haven't done it really since then.
Yeah. There's something really, special about that. I was working with Brooke Shields. She was a client of mine. She's amazing, a friend. And I hope she does something with them one day, but she literally for every movie, every TV show, she has scrapbooks that she has made herself. Oh. Like with I've seen them. It's like amazing. They're like cut out film photos, like writing on them, like newspaper, like all just, it's really great. And I think actually, it's a good exercise if you think about it, because gratitude is so important. And especially in the environment we live in today, we don't really take a ton of time to reflect. Yeah. And like, for me, creating a scrapbook makes me like feel so good about like what I had experienced, like the memories,
Yeah, that like appreciation. You know what's so interesting? I was reading this article in, I want to say the New York Times, like maybe 2 years ago, that was all about just like the idea of anxiety and how you can limit and just like reduce anxiety. And in terms of like that scrapbook, that reflectiveness, like the concept, for example, of like going on a trip. They say that the idea of booking a vacation provides memories in 3 different waves that all provoke like some sort of emotion. So like the anticipation of planning for the trip, like, oh my gosh, I'm going on the trip. Like you're creating memories even in that. You're experiencing euphoria in that moment. Then there's the trip itself. Explains itself, you know, like you're creating those memories, you're enjoying. And then there's the kind of like after the trip. You still get to think about the trip and experience those feelings. And really, I think what we don't always do is prioritize that last part of the experience, whether it's a trip, whether it's just an experience in general. I feel like that reflection period often goes missed. Like the lead up to it, it's all you can fucking talk about. During it, like, yes, you're enjoying it so much, but afterwards, how are we really like capitalizing on that moment? So I feel like and the anxiety part of it all, like your anxiety subsides as you kind of recognize these phases and kind of lean into them more. And so I just thought it was really interesting. And I, since then, haven't like scrapbooked more or like, but I have been trying to like be more reflective. Like I've been trying to take videos and photos that I don't post on Instagram that are like just for me. Like my last trip to Tulum, I have like this clip of the moon and it's by the sun, or not by the sun, by the sea. And I took the video right after I had this really empowering talk with this like Black woman entrepreneur who like really poured into me on the conversation about my mom. And she was like, you should take a video right now just to remember all of this. And I took the video and like it's just for me. And it's kind of like not a scrapbook, but like a piece of a scrapbook that I go back to for peace, for euphoria, to like
it's
relive.
Like your personal time capsule.
Yeah.
I love that. I've thought about doing, I don't know, sometimes I get like awkward with myself. Like I want to, you know, when I was a kid, I like tried the diary thing. I have some of them. I read them sometimes. It's a little weird. I was like boy crazy. All I wanted was to marry Leonardo DiCaprio.
I mean, come on, girl.
That was literally like, my babysitter at the time, and actually I love this concept. She gave me this book that I still have somewhere, and it's the Book of Wishes. And every page like has like a different sort of like phrase on it at the bottom. And all you do is just write down things that you wish for.
It's like a manifest journal.
It's sort of a manifest journal.
That's so cute.
I like that manifest journal.
Like,
what are your thoughts on vision boards?
I love a good vision board. I have been like collaging forever, but I haven't done one, I think maybe since the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, I try to reset and think forward a lot, but I do think that we live in a culture where it's harder to do that because the landscape is changing all the time. So it's like what works kind of changes, especially when you're out on your own.
Yeah.
I personally find it challenging to say, oh, in 5 years, I want to do this.
Yeah.
Like we're going to be deep in the metaverse in 5 years.
I used to be that person that was like, oh, I have a timeline. And truthfully, I did it. If I look at my like list of like my goals and shit as a college person, I did them. And I think I got to, when I was at Refinery, I got to a place where I was like, wow, have I peaked at like 25? And I didn't have anything else on my list to like really, I wanted to like buy a house and shit, but like, come on, like that wasn't on my like college list of things. It's on my list now. But like now I have some things I want to do. But back then I was like, I don't really know like what my dream job would be, like what I want to do next, because I feel like I really like where I am and I just was a little bit lost. And so for the first time in my life, I think the past like maybe year and a half, I would definitely tell people like I don't have a 5-year plan. And like for me, they're like, what? That's crazy of you to say. But like, I have no idea right now. I'm just kind of going with the flow.
Test and learn.
Yeah. If you would have asked me like 4 years ago, if I would have worked at a tech company, I would, and I've told you this, like I would have been like, probably not. Like the pinnacle for me is like a Harper's Bazaar or Vanity Fair or Vogue or something, like not a Facebook, but things have just changed.
Okay, I mean, on the magazine front, I'm kind of excited about returning to magazines in a different way. Like, what do you think? Do you think they're coming back in a weird way?
I mean, the magazines I've been on, I mean, I'm 28, so I've lived in the world of like web journalism for a while and participated in it. And so I don't really think web journalism is like going anywhere. People are always going to want to click articles, send them to their friends, read about them fast.
Even if they can get that content communicated to them via video in one place without leaving the platform? You think that's still gonna...
I think it is, but I do still think that there are people, because of our society today is so progressive and politically correct, even the Gen Z kids are not just getting on TikTok and like spewing dumb shit. Like they have CNN like sources and stuff. Like the good ones, like they are journalists. So even them creating those videos, they can't even create it without the primary sources.
Without the original source.
It's 2022. Like, if you're going to make a claim, the internet is going to be like, bitch, where are the receipts?
Yeah.
And I think that's still where journalism comes, like traditional web journalism, because some journalists will still be like, what about print? And I'm like, I'm not even addressing print at this point.
Yeah, just digital.
Yeah, I do think that a lot of the Condé brands, a lot of the Hearst brands have gone into the subscription content, which is, I mean, like, they say it's working.
Right. We were talking about this earlier. I mean, Snapchat's doing it now, too.
They say it's working. Like, I'm pretty sure Cosmo's subscription content is working from what I, like, hear in the industry, and I don't really see it going anywhere.
Yeah, I think I agree, because I also look to it for the curation, right? It's the curation of what's out there. I'm also getting really into Substack. There's this amazing stuff. I think I told you about After School. Did I tell you about that Substack?
Yeah, you did.
It's so good. And it's all about Gen Z, and which is like right up my alley.
Yeah.
But the way she sort of curates the things that she knows somehow I'm going to be most interested in, and sort of creates these like bite-sized sort of almost cliff notes on the pieces, and then I can dive into them a little bit deeper. But a lot of what she's picking up is actually from social media, like things happening on social media, and like curating that, right? Because even now, like, for example, I'm working on this NFT project, and I was looking for sculptors. And there's a lot of talk about how TikTok and Instagram, they're the new Google. Like, people aren't, especially Gen Z, they're not using Google really.
Right.
They're using this, they're searching on the social platforms. But I gotta say, there's not that, like, when I go search on Instagram, for example, I was searching last night, what was it? 3D artist.
Yeah.
There's no curation of that, right? I can't drill down and filter anything from, it's just like a sea, and I just have to go through it and like manually find and then see related, and you know, and go down the rabbit hole to try and find the really like the right references. And so what I do appreciate about the editorial space, like digital editorial journalism, is its ability to kind of do some of that work for you, and like weeding through it and sort of curating like talent or trends or whatever it might be. But yeah, I'm super into Substack now, and also the popularity of podcasts. I mean, look what we're doing here.
You should do a Substack.
So I'm launching a Substack for this podcast. Yes. Stay tuned. Okay, I'm going to ask you a few rapid fire questions before we officially wrap up. So you mentioned this, you actually like knew one of my questions for you, which is, what is your superpower?
I would say my superpower, it's hard to pick one, which sounds really douchebaggy.
Not at all.
But I think that a few years ago, if you would have asked me what my superpower was, it would be building niche communities on social media fast.
How do you do it fast?
I think it depends on what the niche is, who the audience is. The last account that I was tasked with like truly growing from the ground up was the Unbothered account, Refinery 29's platform for Black women empowerment. And we really just, I know it sounds so basic, but just like threw shit at the wall and doubled down hard on what worked. I think that as a strategist, that is always first.
I think it's super important to raise that actually. Like it's a test, learn, optimize strategy, I think, right? And I think a lot of people are like, I don't know what to do with social media. I'm afraid. And they like don't post, you know, and you kind of just have to like try things, learn from it, and then optimize, in my opinion.
That's so true.
Okay, if your life had a tagline, what would it be?
Laurise McMillian, the dreadlock Barbie.
Oh my God, I love. We are like soul sisters. Okay, and who are your mentors? I mean, who guides you? And I don't mean people that you sort of follow from afar. I mean people you actually interact with that guide you.
Yeah. So I have worked in women's magazines for most of my late teens and 20s. So I'm super blessed to have a bunch of really badass, super smart, super fly women who have guided me throughout my whole career.
What advice would you give someone in terms of, because building your network of mentors is so important. What advice would you give to someone who maybe didn't have that built-in network?
I would say go out of your way to seek leadership that you can relate to. I think when you're approaching somebody new who you don't know like that, be honest, flatter them. Let them know that you don't see leaders like them every day and that you are inspired by them, and that if they have the space that you would love to assist with whatever, if you would love to also pour into them the way that they have like unknowingly even poured into you.
I love that.
So that would be my best advice.
I love that. Well, listen, Laurise, like this has been amazing. You're the best. I am so inspired by you. I'm also, you know, just so grateful to, you know, the universe for bringing us together because, fun fact, we met on Instagram.
We did.
And I was a huge fangirl. So when you were like DMing me back, I was like, oh, I was so excited.
I'm a fan too. Are you kidding?
Well, I think we have a lot in common.
We do.
It's been so fun chatting with you. Thank you for playing the game. And I hope we get to do this again sometime in the future. And
thanks everyone for tuning in to the first ever, the debut episode of Is a Game. I'm super pumped to go on this journey with you. Make sure you subscribe to our Substack at isagame.substack.com. The link is also in the episode description. So get involved and stay in touch between episodes at Is a Game Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. Okay, thanks everyone. Love ya. TTYL.